Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Breakfast with Blaha, and today I'm having watermelon with some potassium salt added. I know this is pretty simple, very simple meal. I'll get some protein in later. Let's talk a little bit about something I got asked in the comments. Someone said, I'm not saying this to, be argumentative. I really and truly don't understand. If we're talking about getting our vitamins and minerals, why can't we just eat junk food and pop a multivitamin? And to be fair, not an unreasonable question, particularly for people who haven't spent a lot of time digging into nutrition. There's some things to consider there. Is that number one, the foods that you eat, it's not just about the vitamin and mineral content or even their absorption or malabsorption. We'll get into that in a minute. It has to do with certain effects on the body. For example, not all carbs are going to be equal. People can claim, oh, there's nothing wrong with this type of carb. Well, in small quantities. But things like absorption rates, fiber content, they matter a lot as far as the way it affects your blood sugar, energy, insulin sensitivity, all those things. Kind of important. And we get into the topic of fructose. People will say, well, isn't fructose just fructose? There's lots of fructose in that watermelon. Yeah, but there's fiber in it, and it's in a whole matrix of a food. There's a difference with something like fructose regarding if your gut breaks it down versus if your liver breaks it down. There's an enormous difference. And it's both an absorption rate and a quantitative situation. Meaning, yes, fructose eventually gets turned into glucose, or we can't use it for fuel, by the way. You cannot burn fructose. Your body can't use it. It has to change it to glucose. Now, the longer it sits in your intestines, the more your gut flora. If you have a healthy gut flora and healthy gut bacteria, it will start breaking a lot of the fructose down, if not most of it, and turn it into glucose for you. But it's got to get to the lower intestine for it to happen to a meaningful degree. If you're just consuming, say, table sugar or high fructose corn syrup, and no, I don't like it when people try to argue there's a big difference. You'll get people like, oh, high fructose corn syrup is bad, so I use table sugar. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a slightly different ratio, but you're still getting a refined fructose. You're going to absorb most of it in your upper intestine, and your liver is going to have to cover the process. It creates a lot more stress on your body, a lot more stress on your organs. It can affect insulin sensitivity. It's how we get fatty liver disease. Non-alcoholic fatty liver is excessive fructose consumption, but notice the word here is excessive. Your liver can handle a small amount of it just fine. So we kind of come back to that point of quantity matters. Fructose is not inherently bad. Excessive fructose reaching your liver is bad. There's a difference. Then I get people, well, what's the exact amount? Well, how about you just don't risk it? Do you really need to be putting table sugar on your food? I mean, be realistic here. Unless you're trying to bulk really hard and you can't get calories any other way. I might argue, though, that more fat in your diet, you just eat more healthy fats. It's a solution. That's the other stuff we get to. If you're just eating a bunch of junk, we deal with higher levels of inflammation. Okay, we have all these things happening. And this is before we get to the topic of vitamins and minerals. All right, then we have the other situation. We have the whole matrix of non-vitamins. We have all these polyphenols. We have phytonutrients. All right, there's so many of these that we can't keep up, and they're not necessarily required, meaning they're not vitamins and minerals that you must absolutely have, but they sure optimize a lot of things. They sure help control a lot of inflammation, fight cancer, all sorts of issues seem to be related to your intake of these things, and there is no upper threshold. a higher variety and larger quantities of phytonutrients and polyphenols seem to have just overall health benefits, metabolic benefits, everything else. Okay, you only get this in the matrix of a whole food. Then we get into the vitamins and minerals. Now, do you see we've gotten all the way to this point? Well, how much time are you willing to spend researching your multivitamin to see how well it's formulated? Most multivitamins on the market suck. They suck. And this has been an argument in the past that because they're not in a matrix of a whole food or in the ratios found in whole foods, our bodies don't absorb them or utilize them the same way. That's a problem. A lot of the cheaper ones, the ones that you guys are buying, oh man, this is only $20 for this bottle, not $80 or $100. Might not be very well formulated, and what you're going to find a lot of times it's low bioavailability, or some of these things are you run into problems to where you might have a high bioavailability on one metal and a lower bioavailability on another in there, and the high intake of the one blocks the other. Things like zinc and copper, for example, compete. You take something with, you already have a diet that's high in zinc, you throw a multivitamin in with a high bioavailable zinc, it will actually block your ability to absorb copper. You end up with a copper deficiency. We start running into problems really quick when we just throw a broad number of supplemented vitamins and minerals at something. And I'm not saying we can't supplement some of these things, but they need to be researched. Right? You need to be looking at it going, would I benefit from a vitamin E supplement? Do I need an omega-3 supplement? All right, some of this stuff is perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. These things have their place for optimizing stuff. Vitamin K2, particularly for us older lifters. All right, here's two categories of people. You're an older lifter, you're 35 plus, or you use anabolics. You absolutely need to be taking K2. And the reason you cannot get enough in your diet to get all the benefits. It's one of those things that when we've studied it, it's been studied, there are measurable health benefits, particularly related to cardiovascular disease, to taking K2 in amounts that cannot be found in food anywhere on earth. It's one of those vitamins that there seems to be benefits from exclusively supplementing. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's something to look into as an individual vitamin. That's not what's in your multivitamin. So the issue we run into is that you should be looking at individual benefits, individual deficiencies, not hoping that you can just grab some big multivitamin as an insurance policy. You might actually create imbalances, particularly with a cheap one. And then we come over to how much you willing to spend on a multivitamin. It gets to a point where it's like, man, I could have just eaten some vegetables for less money than I spent on that ultra high grade multivitamin that I had to spend all this time researching to find one that experts agree is well formulated. I mean, when you start spending $2 every day for your multivitamin, you could have spent that on some fruits and vegetables. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.